Finn used to think wealth looked loud. A nice car, a beautiful apartment, a new phone the week it came out, clothes that made success visible, a lifestyle that told the world, I'm doing well. In Finn's mind, rich people were simply the people who could buy more. And for a long time, he believed one simple idea. If he could just make more money, he would finally feel free. It sounded logical, because when money feels tight, it's easy to believe that more income will solve everything. More money means less stress. A bigger paycheck means more freedom. A more expensive life must mean a better life. Finn believed that for a long time. So he worked harder. He tried to improve himself. He watched videos about success. He compared himself to people who looked like they had already made it. And every time his paycheck arrived, he felt that same short burst of relief. For a moment, life felt lighter. The number in his account looked good. The future felt safer. And Finn would think, okay, now things are finally getting better. But then real life started again. Rent, groceries, subscriptions, coffee on the way, food delivery because he was tired, a few small upgrades, a new item of clothing, a gadget he convinced himself he needed, a few small purchases that didn't seem important at the time. And a few days later, the feeling was gone. The money didn't disappear all at once, it leaked. Quietly, casually, almost invisibly. And that was the worst part. Finn couldn't even point to one big mistake. He didn't buy a luxury watch. He didn't blow everything in one day. He was just living. And somehow, just living was taking almost everything. Over time, Finn noticed something strange. His life looked more expensive than before. He had better things, a nicer phone, better clothes, more convenience, a more polished lifestyle. But inside, he didn't feel richer. He felt more fragile because now his life cost more. And that meant he constantly had to keep earning enough just to hold that life together. One evening, after a long day, Finn sat in his apartment with takeout on the table and his banking app open on his phone. The balance on the screen wasn't catastrophic, but it felt dangerously small. There were still many days left until the next paycheck. And then another bill came in. Not huge, not dramatic, just unexpected, but it was enough. Finn leaned back in his chair and thought something honest for the first time. I'm not poor, but I'm not free either. And that thought changed everything, because until then, Finn had always believed the problem was income. But now, for the first time, he started to wonder if the problem was something else. Maybe the problem wasn't just how much money came in. Maybe the real problem was what happened to money after it arrived. The next day, Finn started paying more attention. He looked at the people around him. Some of them looked rich, nice cars, expensive clothes, beautiful photos, a polished lifestyle. The kind of life that looked successful from the outside, but when he listened more carefully, there was often something else underneath it. Payments, debt, stress, pressure, the fear of losing income, the need to keep the image alive, a life that looked rich but was actually fragile. And then he noticed another kind of person, people who didn't seem obsessed with looking wealthy. They weren't loud about money. They didn't upgrade everything the moment they earned more. They didn't seem desperate to impress anyone. But they had something Finn didn't have. Calm. They weren't panicking over unexpected bills. They weren't afraid to check their balance. They weren't waiting for payday like it was a rescue mission. They didn't look like one bad month could break everything. At first, Finn thought, they probably just make way more money than I do. But slowly, he realized that wasn't the whole truth, because he had seen high earners who still looked trapped, and he had seen people with more modest lifestyles who seemed far more stable. That's when Finn asked the question that changed everything. What do rich people actually do with money differently? Not how they dress, not what they post, not what they buy. What do they do differently after they get paid? And the first answer was surprisingly simple. Most people use money emotionally. When they feel stressed, they spend. When they feel tired, they reward themselves. When they feel bored, they look for a quick dopamine hit. When they get a raise, they upgrade their lifestyle. When they compare themselves to someone else, they start buying to close the gap. Money stops being a tool and starts becoming a reaction to stress, a reaction to comparison, a reaction to insecurity, a reaction to emotions. And suddenly, Finn saw himself in that pattern. He wasn't really directing his money, he was reacting with it. Every purchase saw Solod a feeling for a moment, but only for a moment. After that, the same stress came back. The first big difference Finn discovered was this: rich people do not leave their money undefined, they give it direction. Before, Finn would get paid and see one big number in his account, and in his mind, that number felt available. He thought, these are my money, I can use them. But that was the illusion, because not all the money sitting in his account was actually free. Part of it already belonged to rent. Part of it belonged to food. Part of it belonged to future bills. Part of it belonged to savings. Part of it belonged to his future self. Part of it belonged to investments. And yes, part of it belonged to enjoying life. But when it all sat together in one balance, his brain interpreted it as freedom. And then reality came and claimed its share. So Finn started doing something simple. He began separating his money by purpose, not in a complicated way, not in a perfect way, just honestly. This part is for essentials. This part is for food. This part is for upcoming expenses. This part is for emergencies. This part is for investing. This part is for enjoying life without guilt. For the first time, his money stopped feeling like one giant undefined pool. Each part had a job. Each dollar had a mission. And strangely, that didn't make Finn feel restricted. It made him feel calmer, because money with no job disappears easily. Money with a mission behaves differently. That was the first difference. Rich people don't just earn money, they assign it. The second difference was even more powerful. Rich people buy freedom before they buy status. And that idea was hard for Finn at first, because status is visible. Freedom usually isn't. A nice car is visible. A luxury watch is visible. A larger apartment is visible. The newest phone is visible. But an emergency fund is invisible. Automatic investing is invisible. Low financial stress is invisible. The ability to say no is invisible. And that's why so many people underestimate it. Finn did too. After getting a raise, he almost did what many people do. He started looking at a more expensive life, a better apartment, a nicer car, more convenience, more dining out, more rewards for how hard he had worked. One purchase tempted him more than the others. A car, not just transportation, a symbol, a sign that he was moving up in life. The monthly payment didn't even look that bad. That was the trap, because monthly payments are designed to feel harmless. But later that night, Finn sat down and calculated the real cost. Insurance, fuel, maintenance, repairs, parking, depreciation. And then one final cost: how much freedom this car would take from him every month. That's when he realized something important. The question is not just, can I buy this? The real question is, can I live with this peacefully? That one shift in thinking changed the way he saw money, because a purchase is not just a price, it's a commitment. And sometimes the real cost of a thing is not the money it takes today, it's the flexibility it takes tomorrow. Poor financial thinking often asks, how can I look richer? Wealthy financial thinking asks, how can I become freer? That doesn't mean rich people never buy beautiful things. They do, but usually not first. First, they build the base: security, cash reserves, assets, stability, flexibility, and then, after that foundation is strong, luxury becomes safer. The third difference Finn discovered was this: rich people don't rely only on motivation, they build systems. For a long time, Finn thought financial success was mostly about discipline. He believed he just had to be stronger, spend less, say no more often, resist temptation, be motivated every day. But that didn't work consistently, because Finn was human. Some days he was tired. Some days he wanted comfort. Some days he didn't want to think about budgets or numbers or future planning. And that's when he realized something important. The goal is not to become a perfect person. The goal is to create a system that still works when you are imperfect. automatic transfers into savings, automatic investing, spending categories, visible limits, a waiting rule before large purchases, clear financial priorities. None of this looked glamorous. It didn't feel dramatic, but it worked because the system didn't require Finn to be excellent every day. It simply made chaos harder. Before, he was trying to control himself. Now, he was learning to control the structure around him, and that was much easier. Rich people don't wake up every day with magical discipline, they just make fewer decisions from chaos. The fourth difference hit Finn's ego a little harder. Rich people don't confuse expensive things with wealth-building things. For a long time, Finn assumed that if something was expensive, it must somehow be valuable in a serious way. But slowly, he started to see the distinction more clearly. Some things pull money out of your life. Other things help build more options into your future. A jacket can be beautiful, a car can be enjoyable, a gadget can be useful. But if every new thing creates more financial pressure, it is not making you freer. An asset isn't just something that looks valuable. An asset is something that supports your future. That idea didn't turn Finn into a minimalist monk. He didn't stop enjoying life. He didn't become cold or obsessive. He simply became more intentional. He started asking a better question, not just, do I like this? But, does this strengthen my life or quietly weaken it? And that question changed his spending in a powerful way. The fifth difference was one of the simplest and one of the hardest. Rich people know their numbers, not vaguely, not emotionally, not, I think I'm doing okay. They know how much comes in, how much goes out, how much their life costs, how much safety they have, how much they invest, how much they can enjoy without guilt, how long they could survive if income stopped. Before this, Finn often avoided numbers because numbers could ruin the mood. Checking his account sometimes felt uncomfortable. Reviewing expenses felt worse. Facing reality felt scary. But then he understood something powerful. Numbers do not create the problem. They reveal the problem that already exists. And once he started looking honestly, his fear began to shrink. Because uncertainty is often more stressful than truth. When Finn finally looked at his spending, he saw things clearly. He saw where money was leaking. He saw what he was paying for and barely using. He saw where emotion was controlling purchases. He saw how expensive his normal life had quietly become. And then he started adjusting. Not with shame, not with punishment, with clarity. He kept money for enjoyment, but now it was planned. He kept room for gifts, but now it didn't destroy the month. He kept the ability to buy good things, but now those things were no longer competing with his future. That was the real shift. His financial life became less emotional and more intentional. Slowly, something changed inside Finn. Money stopped feeling like constant noise. Before, the same thoughts kept repeating in his head. Will I have enough? Can I afford this? Where did it all go? What if something happens? Why do I always feel behind? Those thoughts didn't disappear overnight, but they became quieter because for the first time, Finn had a system. When his paycheck arrived, he no longer thought, finally, now I can spend. Instead, he thought, okay, where does this money need to go? Some of it was for life today. Some of it was for safety. Some of it was for future freedom. Some of it was for investing. Some of it was for joy. That felt completely different, not restrictive, directed. And over time, Finn's life actually looked simpler from the outside. Fewer random purchases, less clutter, less comparison, less need to impress. But inside, life became richer because he wasn't just building money, he was building calm. He was building options. He was building time. One day, something happened that would have shaken him badly in the past. An unexpected bill arrived. Months earlier, that would have triggered panic. He would have counted the days until payday, delayed something important, felt trapped, maybe even borrowed money. But this time, it was different. He opened his financial system. He saw the buffer for unexpected costs. He paid the bill, and that was it. The month didn't collapse. His life didn't unravel, The stress didn't take over. And in that moment, Finn realized something important. The real change had already happened. Not because he had become a millionaire, not because he could buy anything he wanted, but because one surprise no longer had the power to control his entire life. That was the moment he finally understood what rich people do differently with money. They don't just earn, they don't just save, they don't just invest. They create distance between themselves and chaos, distance in the form of reserves, distance in the form of assets, distance in the form of systems, distance in the form of decisions already made in advance. That is why wealth often looks quieter than people expect. Sometimes wealth looks like a person who is not afraid to check their balance. Sometimes it looks like a bill that can be paid without panic. Sometimes it looks like a simple life that is not built on pressure. Sometimes it looks like peace. And in the end, Finn understood the most important thing of all. Rich people do not feel calm only because they have more money. They feel calm because their money has direction. They don't let every dollar disappear by accident. They don't buy status before freedom. They don't rely only on motivation. They don't avoid the numbers. They don't confuse an expensive life with a wealthy life. And most importantly, they don't wait until they are rich to start managing money wisely. They start managing money wisely first, and that is exactly what slowly makes them richer. Finn looked at his account again. The number wasn't magical, his life wasn't perfect, but for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel anxiety. He felt direction, and maybe that's where real wealth begins. Not with a flashy purchase, not with the perfect income, not with looking successful, but with the moment a dollar stops being random and finally gets a mission. If this story made you think about your own money, start with one simple step. Don't let your income disappear without a plan. Track your spending, build your categories, give every dollar a mission. Search Flowly Money in the App Store or Google Play and subscribe for more cinematic stories about money, habits, and financial freedom.